One of the most difficult areas for people to declutter on their way to a more minimalist life is art and craft supplies. And so I want to talk about some of the things that I've learned, some of the ways that I've helped people through this process. I should warn you, I should mention right off the bat, if you're looking for specifics about how many paintbrushes to own or how many rollers to have or how many balls of yarn is too many, I'm not able to answer that question for you. You're going to have to answer that for yourself. But what I can do is I want to offer 6 thoughts to help you reframe your view of art and craft supplies. Okay, so let's jump in. Number 1. Orson Welles once said, "The absence of limitation is the enemy of art." I've always loved that, and I've always found it to be true. He was talking about making a film and how a tight budget would force creativity upon him. But I think that we can see this in other areas and other art endeavors as well. Like, we fall into this thinking that in order for me to be a creative person, I need to have as many things laid out in front of me, or I need to have as many things available to me as possible before I sit down to work. But in reality, when we have a limited amount of things in front of us, it forces creativity upon us, and it's probably when we begin doing our most creative work. Number 2, there comes a point where supplies begin to interfere with the art or the hobby or the craft. Again, it's this same thinking that we fall into where the more stuff I have, the more I'm going to enjoy whatever it is that I am pursuing and that I love doing. But there comes a point where we can have too much stuff. If you're constantly have to fiddle through a drawer to find the paintbrush that you need or the roller or the stamp that you need, if the room where you do your art is cluttered and isn't enjoyable for you, if it's not calm and peaceful, then the things you've collected are beginning to detract from your joy of the art, and it's time to begin making changes. Number 3, choose better work over more tools. Again, there comes a time where purchasing a new tool, purchasing a new item of any sort will allow me to do my work better. But there also comes a time where I don't need to buy a new thing to do my art better. I just need to focus on doing the art. I had a good friend and we used to play a lot of tennis together, and he would always show up for his tennis match and he would bring like 3 or 4 different tennis rackets with him. And I would just bring my one racket. And we would start playing, and it was inevitable. Whenever he was having a bad match, he would chuck one tennis racket and he would grab another. And then he'd get frustrated and he'd grab a third and he'd grab a fourth. It's like he was always looking for the tennis racket to fix his game. Me, I had no choice. If I was playing bad, I knew it was something in my technique that needed to improve. And when it comes to art, sure, a really nice new camera might be a considerable upgrade from what you had before. But at some point, we need to get good with the tools that we have and work on the craft rather than buying another item. Number 4, embrace the idea of physical boundaries. I don't know what it is for you, if it's a drawer or a cabinet or a room or just a basket, but you embrace a physical boundary and just say, I'm going to keep all my supplies inside this one drawer, inside this one cabinet. And when it begins to overflow, what it does is it forces you to evaluate what you have and what you're using. Number 5, set time boundaries for your supplies. If there's some yarn that you haven't used in over a year, what are the chances that you're going to use it again? I don't know what it is for you and how frequently you do your hobby, but what's a reasonable expectation of, if I haven't used it in this amount of time, then I don't need to keep it any longer. Also, when it comes to unfinished projects, this can be really helpful. If there's this project that you keep thinking you're going to finish, but it's been 2 years, and you haven't set aside the time to finish the project, maybe you're never going to finish it. Maybe you don't really want to finish it as much as you think you do, or you would have made the time over those 2 years. Number 6, last thought for you, find a place to donate your unused items and supplies. I think you have such a passion for this art, for this hobby, and you want to spread this joy around. And so the idea of throwing something away can be difficult, or maybe you spent a lot of good money on whatever that item might be and you're having a hard time part with it. But if you can find maybe a school or a daycare or a local community group, or even using Craigslist or a Nextdoor app to find someone who also loves that hobby or loves that art, and you can pass the things on to them, then they'll get joy out of it, and you'll have the joy of a more decluttered space to enjoy your art better.